Hello, friends. I know that I took a little breaky break, but we are back. Also, I don't personally know Sade, but I don't think I missed anything. So, we are here to review the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Miami. We start off, we learned last week at Marisol's event, which was actually super cute. What she did with her backyard, I thought it was gorgeous. But we learned that Kiki and Julie are both doing swim week in Miami, which I have heard about. So I do, because sometimes you hear about stuff on the Housewives and you're like, is it as big as a deal as they're trying to hype up? But I have heard that it's a pretty big deal. So I think it's cool that they're both doing it, and basically that's like the undertone of this episode. I really specifically enjoy hearing, because I don't know much about Kiki. I enjoy hearing her story about, starting modeling as a teenager, and because of her family, and I think it was because of their culture. I don't remember what language she used, but basically they were not supportive of her modeling and I guess like showing off her body and things like that. So she was kicked out at the age of 15, and she had to take care of herself and fend for herself. So it was nice to be able to hear that context and that personal story to Kiki. You need those types of things, and I like that they do it for like friends of the show as well. It's not just a housewives thing. If you're gonna be here, girl, why you here? Let's learn about you. So I appreciated that. And I always say I want to learn more about Kiki because I like her. I feel like she kind of follows up behind Larsa and them a lot sometimes, but I do like her. We also learned, which Gertie, I think, as well mentioned, well, part of it. She mentioned she mentioned the last episode that she had to have surgery again. And basically, her big thing is, I think she mentioned this later in the episode, so I'm jumping the gun, but basically, she's going to have surgery again because they didn't get all the cancer out. And then we'll talk about the rest when we get there. I'm super jumping the gun. Sorry, I'm a little bit rusty. We move on to Lisa shopping for a home. I don't mind this only because so when we saw it the first time, she was obviously shopping for a very super expensive home. And sometimes you see these like one-off things on Housewives, and it's like, why are we watching this? Like, what's the point? Like, that's not realistic. So I do like that it was at least a through line, and she's now looking at another house, and she even connected it to her storyline of, well, I'm getting this divorce, and I'm trying to come up with this a settlement agreement, and so the cost of a house is going to be contingent upon how much money I get in the settlement agreement, and we get some context as to like basically she and Lenny almost came to an agreement, and it included a really nice house, and then they got into an argument, so things fell apart. Like, so that type of story I don't mind. I don't necessarily want to hear like, oh, Lenny's messing with me and da 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 da, which I've already talked about. So this is more contextual for me. This is more substantive for me, and I didn't mind hearing it. I do think the house was nice, and I live paycheck to paycheck in New York, so I don't really know like who can afford a $5 million house, if that's expensive, if that's in Lisa's pay range, if that's unreasonable. I have no freaking idea, but I would love to learn. So we're at the fashion show. It seems like Julia and Kiki's fashion shows are in the same venue, just at different times. So Julia's is first, and I could be wrong about that. I don't know, but whatever. They're there. The ladies are linking up. And I like, when Adriana gets there, I like that Nicole immediately talks to Adriana. Because I don't feel like Nicole has so much been in the mix of the group this season. What I really liked about Nicole last season was that they were on her tails, and I just don't really feel like she was doing anything to them, and I like that she could hold her own. This season kind of feels like, maybe not intentionally, but it just feels like she's kind of sitting in the back. So I like these instances where I can hear her assert herself. And she basically tells, not in a messy way or a catty way, but she tells Adriana, she's feeling some type of way because she learned that this whole Anna thing was basically a scheme set up by Adriana, and she's catching a flack for it. And Adriana almost immediately, takes accountability and says, well, yes, I definitely should have cleared it up more. She apologizes, and they're going to move on from there. She says she's going to clear it up with Alexia and Marysol, so I can appreciate that. And I also like that, obviously it's Julia's event, so she's not even around, but I like that Julia didn't have to be involved and be a liaison and tell, Adriana for the 400th time, girl, you need to clear this up. I like that it was a direct communication between Nicole and Adriana. So then Alexia comes in, and Alexia basically, she lets Nicole know immediately that she wants to have a talk with her, Marysol, and Adriana, but not now, right? Like, this isn't the time. This is Julia's event. And Nicole's almost kind of just like gleeful because she's like, okay, girl, it's fine. Like, you and Marysol are going to find out more information later. We don't have to chat about it. Like, it's fine. It is what it is, because she feels like it's just going to roll off of her and it's going to be fine. But obviously, we learned that is not the case. But it's Alexia and Marysol, so I guess I mean, I don't even know why we would have expectations for them to be like rational, but I digress. I did think it was really nice to see everybody there supporting Julia. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it could have easily been like a producer thing where it's like, you guys all need to show up. This is an all cast, fine, whatever. But it was still nice because Julia, I feel like they didn't really utilize her as much last season. And they kind of, there's this narrative kind of that she was under the thumb of Adriana, which I don't necessarily agree with. I just think she wasn't properly used. And so I do like being able to see Julia step out and be her own character and do her own thing this season. And the ladies did come together to support her. So I enjoyed that. I'm not going to lie, I didn't really necessarily watch the fashion shows. Like I was kind of cooking as it was going on. I don't mean, you know, what am I supposed to see? But, you know, again, you know, Kiki, she does her show. So they both get that out of the way. And that's great, fine and dandy, awesome. Before Kiki's show, they kind of have this break. That's why I'm like, I believe that they was in the same venue and there was probably just like a break and they reset up for a new show. And all the ladies are kind of talking. They're like, oh, that's just so nice, blah, blah, blah. And Marysol's girl, let's cut the crap. Like, what happened at brunch? Like, what's going on? And I appreciated that. Like, I don't really care for Marysol, but yes, girl, like, what's the tea? Like, let's chat about it. Like, what's going on? And Adriana explains again. She even uses the word again. And she says Nicole did not know anything about, you know, why Anna was coming to the event. And Alexia and Marysol immediately jump in and they're like, but she knew that she was coming because she made the place card. And it's just like, Alexia, I don't know Alexia's age, and obviously, like, age doesn't mean that you're going to be the smartest person in the room. That's fine. But I think it has to account for something. And you've had enough conversations at whatever age that you're at to think a little bit more critically. And it just seems like Alexia, not even just in this instance, just in general across the board, thinks at a very basic level. Like, every time that she I can't even use the word analyze because she's not analyzing anything. Anytime that she's responding and making a statement, it's always so rudimentary and basic and it just does not push itself to that next level. So she's very stuck on the fact, she and Marysol, because they have to share a brain, she's stuck on the fact that Nicole still was welcoming Anna to come, even though Nicole is telling her, girl, even though Adriana's telling her, girl, she didn't know the plot that Adriana was making with Anna. And like, she had no idea, and she doesn't know about the conflict. She doesn't know Anna to be a bad person. She even clarifies in her confessional, like, I've had conversation with Anna, and she doesn't even talk about the ladies. She's only talked about Marysol, and all she said about Marysol was to watch out for her because she starts problems within the group. And I'm thinking to myself, duh. And even Nicole says in a confessional, like, I don't need Anna to tell me stuff that I already know. So I just don't think that there's an issue there. If Anna had come to Nicole and was having kikis with her on the level that she's having with Adriana, and she wants to talk about finances and all that type of, and the husbands, then yeah, of course, then Nicole would bear some fault. But I'm just not seeing any reason in this math problem why Nicole would bear any fault. But this conversation, this argument goes on forever and ever, as if we haven't been talking about it for the last 3 episodes. And we haven't turned the corner. I don't even think we've approached it. So Larsa comes in I don't know if everybody got a good night's rest, but everybody was kind of pulling their weight because I don't really care for Larsa. But Larsa asks a really good question. She's like, well, let's be clear. Like, Adriana, what was Anna coming for? Because she's cutting through the BS. And she's like, Adriana's saying that she brought Anna for a specific reason. Had nothing to do with Nicole. We're still talking about Nicole and name placements. But what was she coming for, Adriana? Like, what was this scheme that you told us about 2 episodes ago and we still haven't gotten into? And Adriana's very upfront and very honest. And she says Anna was coming to talk about Alexia's finances. And that got Alexia up out her seat. And me as well, honey, because I was like, yes, T. Like, Adriana is leaning in. Like, girl, y'all say she, like, last season, I was really sticking up for Adriana. I'm like, she means well. She's fine. She just puts her foot in her mouth. But she is leaning in, honey. She's like, I'm on y'all's neck. Like, yes, I'm talking mess and I'm being messy. Like, this is what I'm doing. And she rationalizes it and says, because you were being rude to Lisa about her finances. And I just thought that made you a hypocrite. And so I was bringing Anna to talk about yours. So Alexia is pissed off and Adriana's not moved. And I don't know how y'all feel, but I live for Adriana. Like, I have no notes. And I thought it was even funny that, producers are asking Lisa in the confessional, like, well, how did you feel about that? And Lisa's like, I loved it. Like, she was sticking up for me. Like, girl, you can act like it's so messy, blah, 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 but please. Like, girl, I loved that. So I thought that was a key. But after they do all their yelling, it seemed like that revelation of why Anna was being brought kind of like sparked some type of like light bulb to go off for Alexia. Marysol still doesn't say anything because she's just going to follow Alexia's lead. We know that. And so I guess Alexia decides like, okay, well now like she says it. She's like, it was Adrianna. You had nothing to do with it. Everybody's like, okay, great. We're turning that corner that we've been looking for. Praise God. And she's like, so we're good. She says that all the time, though. She's like, we're good. Are they going to be good? I feel like she's probably going to bring it up again at the reunion and express that it's an issue that Nicole let her. Like, she's going to re-bring up that same issue because Alexia's elevator just does not necessarily go all the way up. And for me, like, Adriana's confessional even gave, like, I kind of wish that we were getting more of Adriana kikiing and cackling and being a mess within the group, like, in person in the group. But, we get it in the confessional, and she ate it for me. She's just like, basically, the reason that Alexia is picking this bone with Nicole is because Nicole's a doctor, and Nicole's got great taste, beautiful girl, and she's got multiple homes, and she says they're not rented, by the way. And she's like, Alexia wants to be this Barbie, but Nicole is the real Barbie. Alexia is not. Ate her alive. And I personally just will have to agree, and that's based off my opinion from last season, the first season I ever watched. Like, I'm not always quick to be like, oh, they're jealous or they're threatened by them. Like, those not really words that I typically use because I feel like people overly use them without any context. However, I do think that there is something about Nicole that ruffles Alexia for some reason. And I do think that Nicole is that girl. Like, everything about her, like I was already saying, I lived for her last season. Like, I don't know what it was, like the way that she asserts herself, the way that she carries herself. She's gorgeous. Like, I live. So I would have to agree with Adrianna. So after Kiki's show, everybody gets on the bus, and I guess they're, going to be headed to an after party. And Kiki says, that she organized the after party for the ladies, but everybody gets up and leaves with the exception of Adrianna and Julia. Now, to their credit, like I noticed even. I know how daytime works, but I was still kind of taken aback. I'm like, damn, when they started this and they were here, it was daylight, and it seemed like it was pretty early, and now it's nighttime, and they were in traffic, Miami traffic. And so I can understand the ladies being tired because they've been filming, they had conflict, they sat through 2 fashion shows, they were saying they were hungry. Obviously, there were drinks provided, so I'm sure that they were probably intoxicated a little bit, and the girls were hungry and tired, so I kind of get it, but I do think that it's bogus. If it was anybody else, it will make sense for them leaving because that's just kind of how they move, but it's Kiki. And it seems like they all kind of rock with Kiki, so I thought that was weird that they all got up and left. And Kiki says she's going to address it later, so I would like to see it. We do see her kind of get into a conflict in the preview for next episode with Lisa, so I'm interested to see where that stemmed from. We get a link up then with Alexia and Julia. I still don't necessarily buy this dynamic. Every time they say like, oh, they're becoming good friends, I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I do feel like, again, this season was Alexia's apology tour. She still is Alexia, but she's not doing as bad as she did last season, and so I feel like that's maybe why she's cozying up with Julia. And even if I wanted to take it a bit further and reach, maybe she's getting close to Julia because she knows Julia's close with Adrianna, and maybe that's going to cause some weird, friction and dynamics. Maybe. I don't know. But I don't buy that it's out of genuine interest of being friends with each other. Maybe from Julia's point, but not necessarily Alexia. That's just my opinion. But I did like Alexia introducing the fact that they were going to go to Mexico City on a girls' trip, and it's going to be Julia's birthday, and it's also going to be Pride. I think that sticks out because Julia was feeling some type of way about the, rooming together situation, and she thought maybe Alexia was uncomfortable because of her sexuality. So I thought that was a nice kind of like olive branch, or a nice consideration at the very least. We also get Adrianna, working on her music, which I like that is a through line as well. It's not just something that they touched on and we kept moving. I don't mind that. I think that her music is catchy. Am I going to play it on the iPod? Not necessarily, but I like to hear the little ditties on the show. And I also appreciate that they took it a little bit further and decided, oh, well, let's also have her be able to perform at Pride in Mexico City. I thought that was smart. I think it's good for the show and it makes sense. So I'm excited to see that as well. And finally, we get Gertie going through her going through her cancer journey and basically explaining, when she first found out about it, it was like, oh, it's stage 1B and it'll be this, that, and the third, and it should be pretty simple. Things should be fine. And she's like, now things have escalated and her cancer is a little bit more invasive and now she has to do chemo, and she's just like, I don't know how I got here. So I'm really appreciating being able to go step by step with Gertie. It doesn't feel like this isn't anything to play with, so I didn't think that they would overproduce it. But with a lot of storylines on Housewives, they'll overproduce it and they'll piecemeal it and they'll just kind of give it to us bit by bit for suspense or whatever the heck, and we don't get great context. Whereas with this, this is her health. This is serious. And a lot of people are affected by cancer. So I like that we're getting all of this information. And it's just a great personal story to be able to go through with Gertie and learn more about Gertie and get this information. So I'm enjoying the way that they're handling that. I thought this was a pretty good episode. It's getting me back to where I was towards the beginning, where, I was like, I like the pacing, I like the editing. It got a little bit stale for me, some of the episodes, some of the more recent episodes, because it just felt like we weren't talking about anything, and I didn't necessarily know what the personal stories and the storylines were for these ladies and where we were going. But I do feel like we have kind of pieced some things together, and similar to Beverly Hills, I kind of just said the same thing on that review. It seems like we've kind of gotten over a hump, and now we can talk about some new topics, hopefully. We're still watching Larsa and Marcus do this podcast, which I absolutely do not give a damn about, but hopefully, we can just keep moving forward. So we'll see what happens in the next one.